So we've been talking a lot about skills this week and the skills trap. And I just wanted to share a story today, since it's Friday, about the time I fell into the skills trap. So this is a sort of familiar story to some of you who follow me a lot, but years and years ago, I had just gotten back from Japan and decided that what you're supposed to do when you speak another language is translate. So I kind of poked around and found something that was a translation job. It was a translation job at a law firm that had a lawsuit between Gates Rubber and Bondi Rubber about rubber patent infringement. And I was very focused on the skills piece, right? I have this language, and what you do when you have a language is you use the language, and the way you use the language is in translation. And I've said it before, one of the things that was kind of in my head with this idea was this sort of sexy Audrey Hepburn translating at the UN notion. But the truth is that translation work is really not that. Translation work is a lot of very solitary sitting in a cubicle with bits of paper. And because of the sensitive nature of this case, I wasn't even able to go online. So I had a word processing computer, that was all it did, and some dictionaries. And so day in, day out, I sat in my horrible cubicle in this horrible law office in this part of town that I despise with these people that I really did not like or respect. There were a couple nice people. And I translated these incredibly boring documents. And I had signed this non-disclosure agreement as though I understood enough of what I was translating to disclose anything. And it was really horrible, but it was a skill that I legitimately had and was at the time using. It's probably not a skill I have anymore. But the point is that it was a really bad fit. And I was miserable. They didn't like me. I didn't like them. I was taking the bus out there because I was making $11 an hour, which felt really good at the time, but it's not very good. And there was a holiday. I don't remember what it was. And the bus I took, because it's really far away, was running really, really infrequently or potentially not at all. So it would have taken me something like 2 hours to get there. So I talked to someone and said, hey, the buses are really inconvenient for this holiday. Can I work from home today? And the person said yes, but somehow the message got kind of garbled as it went up to the next levels of power. And so the highest up people had understood something different, like no buses were running, or I don't even know what they understood. And so they're really mad, and they, for some reason, didn't have my correct phone number. That's on them. And so they called, and they kept calling and telling me to come in. But of course, it wasn't the right phone number, so I wasn't getting any of the messages. And the upshot is that they decided that that was a fireable offense, also kind of ridiculous. And so they fired me. And it's truly the best thing that could have happened, because it got me out of that skills trap. And I hated that job. I mean, it's really hard to work with people you don't even kind of respect. They're these awful, awful people, and really only concerned with money. Definitely not with humanity. And so it was a really bad fit for me. And so the firing was actually something that worked out really well for me. It was definitely a benefit to me, but it's not something that I would have likely pursued on my own. I needed to get fired from that job in order to learn that lesson. And I really very much hope that that is not true of you. Please learn from my lesson. Don't get fired from a job because you have hyper-focused on the skills instead of the stuff that is more important to you. What's valuable in your life, what your personal values are around work, what you need to be satisfied from work, the kind of environment in which you thrive, the kind of people you respect and enjoy working with, and what your zone of genius is. I'm reasonably good at translation, but it's definitely not my zone of genius. I'm much better when I actually get to be interacting with humans and having conversations and solving problems that are more meaningful to me than whether a rubber patent got infringed or not. It's a little bit hard for me to care a whole lot less about that particular issue than I started off caring about it. So really just think about kind of all those other pieces. Your values tend to be more important than anything else when you are looking for career satisfaction. So really pay some attention to that. What is meaningful to you? What are some values that you have? And what's tricky is that it's very easy for us to see the small values as unimportant. We're unlikely to take positions with organizations that violate our values in really big and obvious ways. And then we tend to think, as I said, that those smaller values and the smaller ways that those get violated is not important. But it really adds up. And so if you're in this place where just kind of constantly you're not being valued for the work you're doing, but everyone else is okay with it, you're not getting to do the work in a way that makes sense to you personally, but everyone else is okay with it, that really just adds up. And that leads to a place of feeling burned out or unhappy or whatever else goes on in it. For me, it was just a really, really bad fit. And so it wasn't even that I got burned out, it's that it never made sense for me to be in that role. So thank goodness I got fired, and thank goodness I learned a lesson from it. And I really encourage you to learn from my mistakes. That old quote about, if I can't be a good example, at least let me be a horrible warning. Let me be your horrible warning. Don't do it. Don't hyper focus on your skills without taking everything else into consideration. All right, well, it's Friday. I hope you all have a good weekend. I hope you are staying safe. Thank you so much for tuning in.